Normally, during that part of the introduction, I make fun of Obama, but today I haven't done an STO in a while, so I just wanted to sit back and relish, that audio moment.
You can scream and shout with all your might.
Because you can scream, shout, whine, cry, snivel, piss, moan.
Dig in your heels and hold on tight.
You can shove your head up your ass, that way your opinions have something to keep them company.
Either you are wrong or I am right.
Don't forget, the ever-present, the most likely, the third possibility which has been verified over and over again. You are wrong and I am right. This is Stating the Obvious, brought to you by the Cynical Libertarian Society. And I am the Great One himself. I am right. I am always right. I have always been right. I will always be right. And this is the weapons platform from which I launch the nuclear-tipped cruise missile that homes in on and destroys your stupid, fucking, statist, freedom-hating ideas. Because you are a dumb fuck, and the Cynical Libertarian Society podcast Stating the Obvious is the one place that not only are we not afraid to mow you down with the M60 machine gun, I am not afraid to call stupid people stupid. So welcome. Many of you don't follow directions, and so for you this is irrelevant. But for those of you who follow directions, for those of you who are at least semi-competent, who have come to the Cynical Libertarian Society website, I can't talk. By the way, the Cynical Libertarian Society is on the internet at cynlibsoc.com. That stands for Cynical Libertarian Society, cynlibsoc. I know I'm dealing with stupid people here, so I have to explain things like this. We are here in the recording studio at the Cynical Libertarian Society, where somebody put a clock in the recording studio that chimes on the hour and the half hour. Who did that, I don't know. Randy is indicating that, of course, it was me. In the control room on the other side of the glass is our sound engineer, Randy. She, in addition to being the sound engineer, she also yells at me when I screw up and reminds me of what I was talking about when I go off on a rant and forget where I was. If you want to contact us here at the Cynical Libertarian Society, the email address is god@cynlibsoc.com, cynlibsoc.com. Those of you who say, why is it cynlibsoc.com? Simple, because it's easier to spell that and type that in than to type and spell in Cynical Libertarian Society.com. But I will refer to it all the time as cynicallibertariansociety.com. And, as usual, I must adjust the microphone. Hang on. What? No. Randy, I blame you. Now, this is an introductory episode to Stating the Obvious. The purpose of this episode is for people who have not listened to the podcast before, who show up and they're going, oh my God, all this guy does is fucking rant and scream the word fuck, and he's out of his fucking mind. Oh my God, this guy's a terrorist. This is an episode designed for you, where I'm going to talk about Stating the Obvious. I'm going to explain what we do, why we do it. One thing we do and why we do it is that these are recorded live. There's no post-production as far as editing or anything like that. So like when I have to stop and adjust the microphone, you're going to hear that shit. Whatever happens when we're recording, that's what happens when this motherfucker goes out. See, like that, when I have a brain fart just like that, and I'm looking at Randy going, Randy, what else was I supposed to say? This is why she's here. All right. No, I know I'm forgetting. Oh, yes, thank you. Today's date is the 16th of July. I'm terrible about giving the date. And this will be Stating the Obvious number 105. Stating the Obvious currently does not have a regular publishing schedule. It could happen, but I tend to record these when I get around to it, and they also tend to come in bursts. That's another thing. If you're wondering, well, when does the next edition comes out? The next edition of Stating the Obvious comes out whenever the hell I happen to get around to it, and that might be today, it might be next month, and for a while we were on hiatus for, about 2 years? We didn't do anything? All right, let's get into this. let's talk about this. Even though the Cynical Libertarian Society is called the Cynical Libertarian Society, I have at this point pretty much transitioned philosophically, politically, economically, social to being what would be called a anarcho-capitalist. That is to say, I believe in anarchy and capitalism. Now, I don't want to do a whole lot of term definition. I'm actually going to set up a dictionary, so to speak, on the website. But I know many of you are thinking, well, anarchy, doesn't that mean people running through the streets killing each other? Well, no, actually it doesn't. Anarchy does not mean a lack of government. Anarchy means voluntary government, which is, of course, not what we currently have right now in our statist society. So I don't want to spend too much time trying to define this stuff because I'm going to talk about this more in depth, blah, blah, blah. What I do want to talk about is the difference between me and the 99%. And also by what I mean when I say the 99%, because we all know the 99%, this is the Occupy Wall Street thing. They've started using this. Well, I'm co-opting their word, their term. Just as back in the day, people that are right now called libertarians used to be called liberals. However, the Democrat Party, being socialist, and recognizing that socialism and socialist and communist were terms they did not want to be associated with, they stole the word liberal from the libertarians. That's why now some libertarians will say, well, we're a classical liberal, because that's what they're trying to differentiate. Liberal, what it meant before the Democrat Party stole the word liberal. And of course, now that liberal has become a dirty word, Democrats are running around saying, no, we're progressives. Which is why, of course, I always say that a progressive is simply a communist who's too stupid to know that he's a communist. Anyhow, Randy, what was my point? Oh, yes, words. Thank you. See, there she is again. This is why she's here. You're going to hear a lot of that as we go through this podcast. Wait, yes, words. Thank you. Just hold the whiteboard over your head with that on it. That's all you need to. That's great. Thank you. Words. Gay used to mean happy. Then homosexuals took the word gay, they transformed it into meaning homosexual, right? Now the word gay is transforming again. It's being used to mean, stupid. And of course, homosexuals don't like this, which in a way I can see, but in another way, they need to realize that, hey, the language changes. And the more you fight it, the stupider you're going to look. So just roll with it and stop your whining. Okay, so words have meaning. That's an important thing. Because here at the Cynical Libertarian Society, I'm very big on defining terminology. We'll talk about that later. Defining terminology is important. Words have meaning, but the meaning of words changes over time. And so I am taking over the term, the word, the phrase, the 99%. The 99% in my parlance means those of you who are statist, those of you who are slaves, those of you who serve and obey the government without question, those of you who have no morals, no ethics, no thoughts of your own. And I know what you're saying, that's not me. No, that's you. Trust me, that's you. Anarcho-capitalism and the views of the Cynical Libertarian Society. By the way, the Cynical Libertarian Society is composed of one person. It is composed of me. If you contact me and say, hey, great one, how do I join the Cynical Libertarian Society? You cannot join the Cynical Libertarian Society because if you want to join something, you're not a cynical libertarian, okay? Cynical libertarians do not fucking join organizations. Okay, cynical libertarians look at organizations and we giggle our little asses off because people who join organizations are like little cult members. I say to cult members. See, I'm digressing already, but speaking of cult members, for those of you listening for the first time, the Obama campaign headquarters is literally one block, 1.5 blocks from my front door. And I love hanging out near there and watching the little brainwashed high school and college age girls come walking out with their eyes all googly and stuff because, oh, I'm going out to hand out flyers for Obama. And I'm like assaulted every time I go to downtown Fort Collins. I'm assaulted by little Obama girls who want to know if my voter registration is up to date. All right, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but it's funny though. At least it's funny to me. It's not funny to you because you're a statist, and there's a chance, there's about a 50-50 chance you're listening to this. Well, there's a 99% chance you're a statist. Of the 99% of you who are statist, there's a 50-50 chance that you are a Republican or a Democrat. So kind of half of you out there are going, yeah, them little Obama girls, they are stupid. And the other half of you are going, well, you're just a racist. You hate black people. Which, let me just jump ahead. I don't hate black people. As you listen to Stating the Obvious, and I express my opinions, which are right, which are always right, because they are based on principles, which eventually I'm going to get to talking about those principles. I have notes. I have notes right here. So far, Randy, we're 11 minutes into this. I haven't fucking followed the notes yet. This is normal. At some point, I'm going to talk about the principles that guide my beliefs. You, as a 99%er, you as a statist, you have principles, but your principles are evil. And I mean that in there's another thing you need to understand when you listen to Stating the Obvious. I mean what I say what I mean. If I say statists are evil, okay, that's not like a fucking phrase or an expression or an analogy. I mean that people who actively, knowingly support the state are evil. Evil in the same sense that people who shot Jews trying to escape from concentration camps, those people were evil. Okay, those of you who work for the government, those of you who support, and I should talk about the difference between the government and the state. Most of you don't know what the state is. Those of you who support the state, those of you who are slaves to the state, those of you who those of you who, when Obama put out that email address, flag@gov.com or whatever the fuck it was, where you could report people who say things about the healthcare bill that weren't true, which is amazing because the healthcare bill hadn't been written. But, those of you who turned in other people to the government for having opinions different than yours, you people are evil. You are the same fuckwads who put Jews in concentration camps. You are the same fuckwads who exterminated the Indians. Native Americans. We have to be politically correct. We're not going to give them their land back or anything. No. We're not going to do anything to make up for the fact that we exterminated them and raped their women, but we will be politically correct and call them Native Americans. I have this argument frequently with my liberal friends who are all, Native Americans, we stole their land, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you own a house, right? Well, yes. Okay, why don't you give that property back to the Native Americans? That never fucking happens. All right, that has nothing to do with what I'm supposed to be talking about. Hang on, I need coffee. All right, principles. Let's do principles. Then we will do the state. No, let's do the state first. What is the state? Government and the state are not the same thing. Government means, in a very literal sense, to make regular, to perhaps oversee, to regulate things. Not quite in the sense that you're thinking about regulations, where it's pages and pages and pages of regulations that control every aspect of our activity. But the point is, you can have government which is voluntary, right? For example, as much as I like to make fun of hippies and communes and all that other stuff, if a group of people get together and say, we want to form a commune, okay, and they go and they do that, so that's an example of voluntary government. Another example, and this will bring us into the state, where people say, whoa, you can't, the internal arguments that we have to have a state, because without the state, who's going to build the roads? Look at the Native Americans. They did not have a state in the sense that we have a state. And when I define the state, you'll see what I'm talking about. But certainly their tribes had government. their tribes were governed by an elder or by a group of elders or by a witch doctor or, however. There were lots of different tribes. Contrary to what many of you believe, they were not all exactly the same. They had many different cultures. Not all of them lived in wonderful harmony with the earth. Some of them actually burned down forest in order to clear cut, and many of them herded buffaloes over cliffs and then took only the meat or perhaps the fat, I'm not a buffalo meat expert, that's in the hump over the buffalo's back and left the rest of it there to rot. You'll also find out as you listen to this podcast, sometimes I can't talk. But that's beside the point. The point is, the Indians had government in their tribes. Certainly there was somebody in charge. They had a culture of rules and taboos and ways they interacted with each other. So that is government. When you sit down with friends and you play a game of Monopoly, okay, there are rules for the Monopoly game. Okay, that is government. And in each of these cases, this is voluntary. And that is a key, voluntary. When you sit down to play Monopoly, you do this, typically, yes, in theory. Another thing about stating the obvious is I don't like to make absolutist statements. By that I mean to say that X is always Y, or this never happens, whatever, because saying anything in absolutes is a path to being wrong, and I am not ever wrong. So yes, it is theoretically possible, I grant you, that somebody could put a gun to your head and say, you're going to play Monopoly with us. That's possible. Most of the time, you sit down, you're going to play a game of Monopoly. It's voluntary. You're doing it because you choose to, and you can stop playing anytime you want. Furthermore, if you and the other people playing Monopoly agree that you want to modify or change the rules, you can do that because the government over the game of Monopoly is voluntary. American Indian tribes. Now, I'm not an expert on Indian tribes, but I'm going to hazard a wild guess that for many of them, if you were a member of this tribe and you did not like the way you were being governed, you could leave. If you could say, I don't like being part of this Sioux tribe anymore, I'm oppressed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you could pick up your toys, you could take your wife and your children and some of your friends if they wanted to go with you, and you could leave that tribe. You could leave that government because being there was voluntary. Now let's compare this to what the state is. Here right now in the United States of America, we have the state. Now the state is not the same thing as the state of Wyoming. Okay, I know this is going to be very confusing for those of you who are statist, because this is also the kind of blunt reality you're going to get here. 99% of you are statist, and the reason you are statist is because you're not very smart. And that's why I have to explain things like this. And you're saying, no, I'm smart. No, you're not. Because if you cannot, listen to me. This is one of those moments. I'm going to say what I mean. I'm going to mean what I say. You cannot be intelligent and be a statist. It's not possible. It's just like saying, you can't. This is another note about analogies. I make a lot of analogies. You're going to, that analogy is not right. Okay, listen, no analogy is perfect, because the only way to have a perfect analogy is for it not to be an analogy. It's to be the actual example. It's kind of like saying you can't hate black people because they're black and support diversity. Okay, they're diametric. You can't. Well, see, and that's not true, because napalm. I was going to say you can't be on fire and be underwater at the same time. However, if you've been sprayed with napalm, you can be, because napalm has white phosphorus in it, which will burn underwater, and it's also made to be sticky, so that they actually did this. The state that you support, we're going to define the state in a minute, this is me, okay, but the state that you support during the Vietnam War, napalm, they first used it. They found that it didn't burn underwater. So that's why they added white phosphorus. And then they found out that if you got napalm on you, if you jumped in the river, it would wash off. So the state made the napalm sticky, so that when the people who were napalmed got the napalm on them and it was burning them and they jumped into the river, it would stick on them and continue to burn them. That is the state. That is what you support. Okay, what is the state? The state is what we have now. The state is a mixture of government, of bureaucracy, of corporations, and of social and ethical manipulations and controls, which all feed each other, and which most importantly are not voluntary. If you are a member of that Indian tribe, that Sioux Indian tribe 200 years ago, and you wanted to leave that tribe, you could get up and go. It was voluntary to be there. Today, as a member of the state, if you want to opt out of the state, if you want to opt out of paying taxes, if you want to opt out of supporting the murder of other human beings, if you want to opt out of giving bailouts to multi-billion-dollar corporations, if you want to do any of these things, you can't do it. If you want to leave the United States of America, you can physically leave the United States and renounce your citizenship, but you have to go through hurdles to do it, and you have to pay them a large sum of money. This is the state. This is an overpowering ideology construct that has no physical existence, mind you. There's nothing physically there. Yes, the government owns, and the government can't really own things, that's another topic. The government owns, buildings and cars and computers and stuff like that. But the state itself has no physical existence. It's this entity out there. It's actually, it's an entity which allows people, because only people do things. This is another argument I'm going to make a lot, because people say this also about the corporations. Well, the corporation had BP did. BP had an oil spill. No. BP didn't do shit. BP is a mythological entity that has no corporeal existence. It's like a unicorn. There is no such thing as BP. People spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico. People did that. Corporations are a way for people to avoid being responsible for what they did. Nobody said and went, well, Bill, George, and Donald fucked up on that oil rig, and they spilled a bunch of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, and now they're going to have to clean that up. See, that's not what happens. What happens is, well, BP spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico. It's like leprechauns spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico, or unicorns. And the corporation is a way for people to do bad things and then not be held accountable. Okay, the state is exactly the same thing, because corporations are an extension of the state. Without the state, there is no such thing as a corporation. This is why those of you in Occupy Wall Street, I hate you with... I'll do that in a minute. See, I'm so getting ahead of myself. I hate you with a passion, because you're too stupid to recognize what's really going on here. The Occupy Wall Street fuckwads have identified legitimate problems. However, because you're stupid, because you're statist, you believe the solution to these problems is more government, more regulations, more state. And it's not. Corporations come from the state. Without the state, there would be no corporations. Without the state, most of these problems would not exist. The solution isn't more government, more regulations, more state control. The solution is to eliminate the state. And when the state goes bye-bye, corporations go bye-bye. When there are no more corporations, nobody can sit there and go, well, BP spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico. Because there is no more BP, just like there's no unicorns. There are only people. And the people who spilled oil in the Gulf of Mexico can be held accountable for it. The corporation can't because the corporation doesn't exist. This is the state. This is also the government. The government works in the same way. I'm a big fan of pointing out that Hussein Obama, our current king, murders people in foreign countries with flying robots. And of course, liberal Democrats who used to be anti-war just can't stop sucking his balls because they think he's the Messiah. Now, in reality, in reality, Hussein Obama hasn't murdered anyone any more than Adolf Hitler never killed a Jew. The Jews were rounded up by the Gestapo. They were turned in by their neighbors. They were put on railroad cars, which were driven by railroad engineers. They were unloaded at concentration camps. They were put into the concentration camp, which was probably built by local civilians or other slave labor. And in the concentration camp, they were prevented from escaping by the guards. And at some point, they were either experimented on by doctors and scientists, or they were killed by somebody. The point is, Hitler, to the extent of my knowledge, never personally killed a Jew. But those Jews were definitely killed. We're not saying they're not dead. They were killed, but not by Hitler. They were killed by the state. The state killed them because all of these people, at any point, the guards at those camps could have opted out. They could have said, you know what, well, actually, they can't opt out. That's the point of the state. The state is not voluntary. In a voluntary society, you could sit there and say, I'm not going to shoot this Jew who's trying to escape from a concentration camp. I'm not going to do that. But had they done that, they themselves would have been killed. Had a guard let a Jew escape, that guard would die. Okay, so participation in this was not voluntary. That is the state. Here in the United States right now, works exactly the same way. And this is why it always amazes me when I hear people saying, I can't believe that the Holocaust, that people would put Jews in concentration camps and kill them. It's like, you are stupid. You are a statist. We're doing the same thing right now in the United States. Hussein Obama, your Messiah, your Savior, has not personally killed anybody with a flying robot. But here's what's happening thanks to the state. All of you statists, all of you slaves, all of you 99%ers, you're going to work every day and you're earning money and you're paying your taxes. Those taxes go to the state. The state is then paying the military-industrial complex, which is a giant corporation, to build flying robots that are capable of killing people. And then those flying robots are built by people who statist slaves, just like you, who they're sitting there, they're building that flying robot. They know that flying robot is going to go out into the world and murder people. They are voluntarily building a robot that will kill people. Then they put it on a truck, and the truck driver drives that across the country. And then it's put on a ship, and it's taken across the ocean. And then it's released up into the air over Afghanistan. And then an American soldier who is supposed to be defending the United States of America sits there in a control room and operates that unmanned drone, that flying robot, searches for somebody to kill with it, and then kills that person. And all of these people, in a sense, they are doing these things voluntarily. You can get another job, you can whatever. But in a sense, they're not. Because if you start at the very beginning, if you say, I don't want to pay taxes anymore, because you're using my tax money to murder people, the government will, first they're just going to come and say, no, you have to give us the money. Then they're going to try to take the money. And if you resist far enough, they'll come and they'll try to imprison you. And if you resist further, they will kill you. So there's a level on which participation in the state is voluntary. But when you take it too far, you quickly find out it's not voluntary anymore. You can volunteer in the state or not in the state to a certain point. It's like me, okay? Hey, guess what? I pay taxes. Yep, that robot that's killing people over there, I helped pay for that. You know why? Because if I don't help pay for that robot, if I don't give the state its due, the state will murder me. And I admit, I am a selfish motherfucker. I don't feel like dying yet. On the other hand, I also acknowledge that because I believe in freedom and because I oppose the state and because I'm pretty outspoken about this, I know that one day the state is going to kill me. When I die, it's not going to be, in bed of old age or some shit. I'm pretty certain I will die because the government at some point is going to recognize me as a threat. In this case, by government, I mean the state. The state is going to recognize me as a threat, and they are going to kill me. Because our state is becoming more and more fascist. This horseshit about how they hate us for our freedom is nonsense. We don't have any fucking freedom. There is no fucking freedom here. There's very little freedom in this country, and there's less and less every day. You people, because you're slaves, you don't recognize that you're not free. While I'm in the same boat with all of you, I and other anarcho-capitalists and other libertarians, we're not slaves, but we are prisoners. We are trapped in the statist system just like you are. You, however, are ignorant, and I mean that in the sense of ignorant. You are unaware. You don't know that you're in a statist system. You don't know that you are a slave. And that's why you can't do anything about it. Okay. Yes, thank you, Randy. We're 30 minutes into this. I've got to none of my notes. Okay. Yes. This is the perfect introduction to stating the obvious, because this is how these usually go. Principles. Unlike you, I have principles. Here are the principles of anarcho-capitalism. The non-aggression principle or the zero-aggression principle. What that means is, as an anarcho-capitalist, we believe it is wrong to initiate aggression against another person. All the time. Always. It's always wrong to initiate aggression. It is not wrong to defend yourself. So, I'm walking down the street. If I see a woman, she looks hot, I think she's physically attractive, I cannot go over there and push her down and rape her, because that is initiating aggression. If a woman is walking down the street and a man comes up and pushes her down and begins to rape her, he has initiated aggression. She can now pull a weapon out of her purse and blow his fucking head off. She is defending herself. If I am sitting here and I decide that our school children need new computers, and let's just for the moment, let's not even go into the questions of, government, school, blah, blah, blah. Let's just roll with it for me. If I want to go out and buy new computers for the school children with my money, that's not aggression. I can totally do that. If, however, I want to pass a law that raises taxes on other people without their consent so that we can buy computers for the school children, that is aggression. Because aggression is more than simply threatening somebody's life. And how can that be, you say? That can be because of property rights. That is the second principle of anarcho-capitalism, is property rights. sentient beings, humans, us, well, me, those of you, this is another argument to be made later, but I will actually at some point make the argument that those of you who are statists, those of you who are in the 99%, you're not really humans. You're not really people in the sense of how a capitalist anarchist would define people. Because people, first of all, to be a person, you have to believe in the non-aggression principle. Or actually, that's not true. You have to apply, you have to live by the non-aggression principle. It doesn't actually matter. This is another thing you won't be able to understand because you're a statist. It doesn't actually matter what you think or believe. It only matters what you do. So if you think about raping other people, if you think about killing other people, if you hate other people because of their skin color or their gender or their sexual orientation, that's fine, as long as you don't act on it. This is the main difference. This is a main difference. I don't want to say the. This is a main difference between anarcho-capitalism and statism. You statists are concerned with what people think. You know, hate crimes. We're going to punish somebody extra. We're going to give them extra punishment because of what they were thinking while they killed another human being. To the anarcho-capitalist, I don't care what you're thinking when you do action X or action Y or action Z. I don't give a shit what's going through your mind. I have no need to control your thoughts. I have no need to access your thoughts. Your thoughts don't matter. Because there's this sort of inverse of this that, well, okay, so if you kill a person and you kill that, and while you were killing that person, you're thinking about how much you hate black people because that person was black, that we're going to punish you more. Okay, does that mean that if I kill somebody and while I'm killing that person, I'm thinking about rainbows and kittens, does that mean you're going to punish me less? I mean, the idea that somehow or another you should receive more or less punishment because of what you're thinking while you kill a person, this is absurd. This is the domain of truly stupid people. And as an anarcho-capitalist, I don't go there. It doesn't matter to me what you think. It only matters what you do. That has nothing to do with second principle of capital anarchism. Anarcho-capitalism. I'm going to get that word right one of these days. Property rights. As a human being, as a person, as a sentient being, you have property rights. One of the pieces of property that you have rights to is your own body. That's why if I go out and I rape a woman, I have initiated aggression against her because I have violated her property rights. Her body is her property. Those of you who are all, pro-abortion, you can't shut the fuck up about how a woman owns her own body. Yet, oddly enough, you don't have a problem with the government controlling the woman's body in other ways, telling her what drugs she can ingest, telling her where she can go with her body, telling her where she can't go with her body, telling her, what she can do with her body in the sense of what she puts in it, what she puts on it, blah, blah, blah. That's another topic. Okay, property rights also extend to the property that we create and that we own. And yes, you can own property. I know a lot of you don't believe in ownership, but I notice that when I walk up to anybody who says that they don't believe in property rights, and I take something that they think is theirs and I walk away with it, I notice they get really upset really fast. Okay, property rights includes your money, your possessions, and we don't have time to go into exactly what that constitutes, what that doesn't constitute. But it's there, okay? You just got to trust me on this. Non-aggression principle and property rights. And I also want to throw out a quick one here. A plug, badquaker.com. Ben Stone over at badquaker.com. I've been listening to a lot of his podcasts lately. Now, I do want to throw out a thank you to him because he's very articulate. He's really listening to him He's very articulate, unlike me. He's articulate, and listening to him has helped me nail down some terminologies and some phrases, and to really solidify some ideas that I myself have needed to solidify in order to better explain what I'm all about to other people. Okay, so we are, Randy, how far? We're 40 minutes into this, and so far I've talked about two things on the list: non-aggression and property rights. So that is the basis of what anarcho-capitalism is about. That is the basis, that is the philosophy, that is the foundation, that is the founding principles of the cynical libertarian society and myself, the great one himself, as opposed to the Messiah, Hussein Obama, who is simply the great one. Now, let me find my notes. Hang on. I know they're in here somewhere. I brought them with me when I came into the studio. There it is. We got that. All right. Let me see how fast. Let me see if I can get the rest of this in 10 minutes. What do you think, Randy? Yeah, me either. All right. Stating the obvious. There's a sister podcast called Cult of Personality. We're not talking about that right now. Stating the obvious. First of all, Stating the Obvious is not a current events show. Okay, I'm not here to talk about current events. I will bring up current events sometimes, but ultimately, Stating the Obvious is here to serve as a platform for me to either philosophize and try to talk about things deeply and analyze them, or for me to fucking rant. Okay? Next thing you need to know about Stating the Obvious: this is not for you. I am not doing this for you. I don't need any fucking suggestions about, well, if you did this, fuck you. Right? I get, well, great one. You would convince more people if you didn't call them stupid motherfuckers all the time. No. Listen to me, stupid motherfuckers. Okay? Stating the obvious is for me. It's not for you. And I am not trying to convince you. Okay? I am not trying to convince you. Here's why I'm not trying to convince you. Number one, you are not important. You don't fucking matter. Okay? You are a statist. You are a slave among millions and millions of slaves. This is why the Occupy Wall Street movement is going to do nothing. This is why the Tea Party movement is doing nothing. Because they're running around, our opinions matter. No, they don't. The state doesn't give a shit about your opinion. The government, the Obama is not sitting up there going right now going, oh my God, the Tea Party did such and such. I better change my ways. The multi-billion-dollar corporations that are building machines that murder people are not sitting there going, oh my God, Occupy Wall Street did such and such. We better change our ways. You know why they're not doing that? Because they don't fucking exist. The state and corporations are not people. They don't exist. They are essentially mindless figments of our society, things that we've created in our mind, things that we obey. But they don't fucking exist. And because they don't exist, they can't respond to your whining and sniveling and protesting and walking on with your placards and shit. So shut the fuck up. Okay? I am not here to make friends. I am not here to convince people. The second reason I'm not here to convince you is because most of you cannot be convinced. Most of you are not intelligent enough to stop being slaves. Let me say that again for those of you who are not intelligent enough to stop being slaves. Most of you are not intelligent enough to stop being slaves. Now, I hear this shit all the time. Oh, if you just did blah, 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 you wouldn't be the way you are. No. Listen to me, motherfuckers. I have been a Christian. I have been a Republican. I have been a Democrat. I have been a conservative. I have been a liberal. I have been a socialist. Okay? I have been a neocon. Okay? I've been there. I've listened to NPR religiously. I've listened to Rush Limbaugh religiously. I've read the Bible. I've read books by atheists. I've been wherever it is, wherever you are on the political spectrum. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh no, if you just understood what I understand. You know, here's the perfect example. You know, my mother is a fucking communist. She has Obama's balls in her mouth and just sucks like crazy. And I mentioned to my mother about Obama murdering people in foreign countries. And this is a condensation but of the conversation. But basically what she said to me is that, if I just watched more politics on television, I would understand why it's okay for Obama to murder people. And I know that most of you out there who listen to this are going to have that same opinion. Oh, great one. You just believe this stupid stuff you believe about not murdering people because you're not as smart as I am. You're not as informed as I am. You haven't seen the same sources that I have. And the idea that you fucking pieces of shit out there think that there is actually some kind of information or knowledge or ideology or perspective that can justify murdering people and imprisoning people. The fact that you even believe that to begin with shows how fucking stupid and sick you are. Okay, but this idea you have that, if I just saw the world from your perspective, I would change my beliefs. If I just saw the world from your perspective, I would understand why it's okay to murder people. The war on drugs. I give you the war on fucking drugs. If I just saw the world from your perspective, I'd understand why it's okay to take a 19-year-old person who has a pound of marijuana, a pound of fucking plant that grows in a ditch, and put that 19-year-old man in a cell where he will be raped by other men. If I just saw the world from your perspective, I'd understand why that's not only the right thing to do, but a good thing to do. No, motherfucker. No, you stupid, cocksucking, motherfucking piece of shit. I have already seen the world from your perspective, and I have rejected it. And part of the reason why I'm not trying to convince you is because for those of you out there who can be convinced, for those of you out there who can make the transition from statist, whether it's left-wing statist or right-wing statist, those of you who can go from statist to libertarianism to anarcho-capitalism, I can't persuade you to do that. You have to persuade yourself. You have to make this transition yourself by thinking, and by thinking very, very hard. It has taken me 15 years to go from where I was to where I am now. This is not something, this idea that I can persuade you. Like, I can do a 50-minute podcast, and in 50 minutes, I'm going to persuade you that the war on drugs is wrong, and that killing people with flying robots is wrong, and that taxation is wrong. That I'm going to persuade you of, if you can honestly be persuaded that your core beliefs are wrong in the span of a 50-minute podcast, that makes you even dumber than I thought you were. Okay, that tells me that you are just completely gullible, and that you have put absolutely no thinking effort into your current belief set, which you haven't. That brings me to belief sets. And yes, Randy, I see we are running out of time. What else is new, right? I guess this is going to be a two-parter. Belief sets. As a statist, I don't want to do the belief sets because I have to do the example. And we don't have time for the example. God damn it. All right. You're a statist. You're evil. I am not going to convince you to stop being evil. So I'm not trying, okay? So just understand. You don't need to contact me and say, you need to say the word fuck less. You need to not insulting people. Let's get that one. I can do that one really quick. I can't do anything quick. Randy's shaking her head because she fucking knows better. There's the biggest load of shit to come out of my mouth in this entire podcast. The only thing I do quick is fuck. But I'm bummed. Oh, what was I going to talk about? I don't remember. Right. Okay. Don't send me your emails at god@sinlibsoak.com. Don't send me your fucking emails or leave your comments about, oh, you talked about the Jews, blah blah blah. You're anti-Semitic. Or you talked about how black people used to be slaves, and so I've said this before, I'll say it again, black people used to be slaves, and you would think they, more than anybody in the United States, would recognize slavery when they see it. Because right now, a lot of we're all, as I said, we're all either slaves or prisoners to the state. But you would think black people would look at this and go, God damn it, we did not get freedom. We're still slaves. What the fuck? And yet they don't. And I don't understand that. I honestly don't understand that. And this is the whole point of where I'm going. I'm not insulting black people because I hate black people. I'm saying this because I honestly don't understand. Why don't black people, and I know I'm like stereotyping, like all black people are in a group, which is what statists do. But why don't they go, what the fuck, man? The government still has us as slaves. I don't know why they're not leading the revolution against statism. But anyhow, the point is, so someone's going to send me an email. You hate black people. Or I'm going to make some comment about women should be in the kitchen making me a motherfucking pie and take your shoes off, right? And there goes, you hate women. Let me be very clear about something. You are not special. Your ethnic, social, gender, whatever group, you are not special. I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm not racist, I'm not sexist. I do not hate any group of people or subgroup of people more than another group of people. I hate statists. I hate all statists. And I mean that I hate statists. Statists are the people who shot the Jews trying to escape from the concentration camps. And you are one of them. I know you think you're not, but you are. I hate all statists equally. Okay? Your gender, your skin color, your ethnicity, your religion, your sexual orientation, whatever, you are not special. I don't hate you more than I hate other people. So fucking get over yourself. Okay? Get the fuck over yourself.
Why should you bother with the other side?
I don't have to bother with the other side.
Yours is right.
I'm always right. Oh, burn. All right, so much for making this a one-shot podcast. I've been told I talk way too fucking much. It's something I can't really deny. Yes, there's going to be a second part, so, you can keep listening to by the way, the theme song! See, this is what I was supposed to do at the beginning of the podcast, not at the end. The theme song for Stating the Obvious is You Know I'm Right by David Gilmour. It's off his 1984 album About Face, and it's a song he wrote about me, obviously.